The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber stretched high above the assembled delegates. Light from 3 different suns poured through its transparent walls, casting rainbow patterns across the polished floor. Representatives from over 1,000 species sat in their designated areas, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. Some looked almost human, while others defied description. The Zephyrians stood tall and thin like silver trees, their skin gleaming under the artificial lights. The crystalline architects resembled living gemstones, their faceted bodies clicking softly as they moved. In the far corner, the gas-based ethereals floated in their containment suits, their forms shifting like colorful clouds. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked steadily down the central aisle. Her simple black uniform looked plain next to the elaborate robes and biosuits worn by the other delegates. She carried a small datapad in her hand and nothing else. No guards, no fancy technology, no impressive displays of power. Just one human woman representing 8 billion souls back on Earth. The whispers started as soon as she appeared. The delegates had heard about humans before, though few had ever seen one in person. They were the species from that small blue world near the galaxy's edge. The violent ones who still fought wars on their own planet. The primitives who had only recently discovered how to travel between stars. Sarah reached the center of the chamber and stopped. A floating platform rose from the floor, lifting her up so all the delegates could see her clearly. She looked around at the sea of alien faces, some curious, others showing clear disgust. She had practiced this moment 100 times, but standing here now made her heart race. High above her, the Council of 12 sat on their golden thrones. These were the most powerful beings in the galaxy, the rulers of the oldest and strongest civilizations. They had been making decisions for the known universe for over 10,000 years. The Hegemon Prime, leader of the Zephyrian Empire, leaned forward in his throne. His voice echoed through the chamber with the sound of wind through metal. The creature from Earth wishes to speak again. This is the 3rd time in 50 rotations that they have come before us with the same request. Sarah took a deep breath. Honored Council, representatives of the galaxy, I come before you today not as a creature, but as the voice of humanity. We ask once again to be granted membership in this great alliance of worlds. A sound like breaking glass came from the crystalline architect section. It was laughter, though not the kind that showed happiness. Membership? One of them chimed, their voice like wind chimes in a storm. Your species has not even learned to live in peace with itself. Your world is covered in the scars of your endless wars. Sarah felt her face grow hot, but she kept her voice steady. It is true that we have fought wars, but we have also learned from them. Every conflict has taught us something new about ourselves and about the price of violence. We do not wish to bring war to the galaxy. We come seeking knowledge, friendship, and a chance to grow beyond what we have been. The gas being called Vortex Prime shifted inside his containment suit. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind through a cave. Growth? We have watched your species for 300 rotations. You have not changed. You still kill each other over resources, over beliefs, over patches of dirt. What could such beings possibly offer to civilized space? We offer determination, Sarah said, her voice growing stronger. We offer the ability to solve problems that others might give up on. We offer loyalty to those who earn it, and protection for those who need it. Yes, we have fought wars, but we have also built wonders. We have created art that moves the soul, music that speaks to the heart, and literature that explores the depths of what it means to be alive. Another round of those glass-breaking laughs came from the architects. Art, music, literature? The speaker's crystal body flashed with different colors. These are the toys of children. What can you offer that has real value? What technology do you possess that we do not already have in better forms? Sarah felt her prepared speech slipping away. These beings did not want to hear about human achievements or human potential. They had already made up their minds before she even arrived. But she had to try. Too much depended on this moment. We offer perspective, she said finally. Every species in this chamber has lived in peace for thousands of years. You have forgotten what it means to struggle. to fight for survival, to push beyond your limits because the alternative is death. Humanity remembers these things. We know what it means to face impossible odds and find a way to win anyway. The Hegemon Prime's laugh sounded like a tornado. Struggle? Violence? These are exactly the reasons why your species cannot be trusted with access to the wider galaxy. You speak of these things as if they were virtues instead of the savage impulses. They truly are. The vote is clear, announced Architect Prime, their crystalline form pulsing with cold light. Humanity is denied membership in the Galactic Council. This decision is final. But the Hegemon Prime was not finished. He stood from his throne, his silver form towering above the chamber. Furthermore, this council declares the Sol system to be under protective quarantine. No human vessel will be permitted to travel beyond the boundaries of their home system. This restriction will remain in place until such time as humanity has proven itself capable of civilized behavior. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. A quarantine. They were not just being denied membership, they were being trapped in their own star system like dangerous animals in a cage. "You cannot do this," she said, her voice echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. "Humanity has done nothing to deserve imprisonment. We have never attacked another species. We have never threatened galactic peace. Your very existence is a threat to peace," the Hegemon Prime replied. "Your primitive violence, your chaotic nature, your inability to accept proper authority, these things make you dangerous to civilized beings. The quarantine is for the protection of all species, including your own." Sarah looked around the chamber one last time. In some faces she saw pity, in others fear, but in most, she saw nothing but cold indifference. These beings saw humanity as nothing more than a problem to be contained. "This is a mistake," she said quietly. "You think you know what humans are capable of, but you only see what you choose to see. You see our wars, but not our courage. You see our conflicts, but not our creativity. You see our struggles, but not our strength. This quarantine will not protect you. It will only ensure that when we do meet again, it will not be as friends." The floating platform began to lower, carrying Sarah back to the floor of the chamber. As she walked back down the central aisle, the whispers started again. This time they were not curious or disgusted. They were satisfied. The dangerous humans had been dealt with. The galaxy was safe. Sarah reached the exit and turned back for one final look at the assembled delegates. They were already moving on to other business, discussing trade agreements and territorial disputes. The human problem had been solved in their minds. They could return to their comfortable, civilized lives without worry. But far away, on a small, blue world circling a yellow star, other humans were watching this moment through quantum communicators. Admiral Marcus Reeves stood in the command center of Luna Base, his hands clenched into fists as he watched humanity's dismissal and imprisonment. The aliens thought they knew what humans were capable of. They thought violence and chaos were humanity's greatest weapons. They had no idea that humanity's true strength lay not in their ability to make war, but in their refusal to accept defeat. The quarantine fleet was already moving into position around the Sol system. The aliens believed their superior technology and numbers would be enough to keep the humans contained forever. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council declared their quarantine around the Sol system. The alien fleet hung in space like deadly jewels, their ships gleaming with advanced technology that humanity could only dream of possessing. Each vessel was a work of art, smooth curves and flowing lines that spoke of centuries of refined engineering. Captain Thrix of the Zephyrian destroyer Windcutter yawned as he reviewed the daily patrol reports. Nothing ever happened out here on the edge of human space. The primitive Earthers had tried to send a few probe ships toward the quarantine line in the first month, but they had been easily turned back. Since then, silence. "Any movement from the inner system?" he asked his sensor operator. The young Zephyrian shook his silver head. "Nothing significant, Captain. The usual commercial traffic between their worlds. A few mining ships heading to the asteroid belt. Their largest vessel appears to be heading toward their gas giant. Probably another mining operation." Thrix nodded. The humans were so predictable. All they seemed to care about was digging up rocks and burning fossil fuels. It was almost sad how limited their thinking was. The Council had been right to contain them. A species this primitive would only cause problems if allowed into civilized space. What Thrix did not know was that every one of those mining ships carried something far more dangerous than drilling equipment. Hidden in their cargo holds were weapons that would have made even the Council pause in concern if they had bothered to look closely. On Luna Base, Admiral Marcus Reeves stood before a holographic display showing the positions of every ship in the quarantine fleet. Red dots marked the alien vessels, while blue dots showed the human ships they were tracking. What the aliens could not see were the green dots, the ships that human technology had learned to hide from alien sensors. "Status report," Reeves commanded. Commander Lisa Park stepped forward, her uniform bearing the insignia of the newly formed Terran Defense Force. "Project Trojan Horse is proceeding on schedule, sir. We now have 67 stealth ships positioned throughout the outer system. The aliens have no idea they exist." Reeves smiled grimly. "And the special projects?" Dr. Vasquez reports that the kinetic bombardment platforms are ready for deployment. Engineer Chen has completed work on the gravity well generators. And Dr. Martinez says the nuclear minefields can be activated on your command. The Admiral nodded. For 6 months, while the galaxy believed humanity was trapped and helpless, the greatest minds of Earth had been working around the clock. They had taken every scrap of alien technology they could get their hands on, every piece of equipment traded by black market dealers, every component salvaged from crashed alien ships over the years. But more importantly, they had done something the aliens never expected. They had improved on it. The crystalline architects built beautiful ships that could travel faster than light, but they had never thought to armor them properly. Why would they? No civilized species would dream of ramming one ship into another. The Zephyrians created powerful energy weapons, but they had never learned to fire them in rapid bursts. Their concept of honor demanded that each shot be precise and measured. The ethereals had mastered gravity manipulation, but they used it only for peaceful purposes. The idea of weaponizing their gravity generators had never occurred to them. They were too civilized for such thoughts. Humanity was not civilized. They were survivors. Dr. Elena Vasquez worked late into the night in her laboratory deep beneath the lunar surface. Around her, techs assembled the final components of her masterpiece. To anyone else, it looked like a simple metal rod about 3 meters long. But Elena knew better. When fired from a ship traveling at near light speed, this simple rod would hit with the force of a nuclear weapon. "The math is beautiful," she murmured to her assistant. "Kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. When the velocity approaches the speed of light, even a small mass becomes a planet killer." Her assistant, a young man named David, looked nervous. "Are you sure about this, Doctor?" "The aliens have shields, force fields, all kinds of defensive technology." Elena smiled. "They have defenses designed to stop energy weapons and explosive warheads. But a solid chunk of tungsten moving at 90% light speed? Their computers won't even recognize it as a weapon until it's too late." 3 levels below Elena's lab, engineer Chen Li put the finishing touches on his own project. The gravity well generator looked innocent enough, a sphere of alien crystal surrounded by human-built field coils. But when activated, it could create a gravity field strong enough to crush a spaceship like an empty can. "The aliens taught us how to manipulate gravity," Chen said to his team. "They just never imagined we would use it to create artificial black holes." Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt that the aliens thought was just a mining operation, thousands of human workers installed the final components of Admiral Reeves's master plan. What looked like ordinary asteroids now contained nuclear warheads and maneuvering thrusters. A few lines of code could turn the entire belt into the galaxy's largest minefield. Back on the quarantine line, Captain Thrix was growing bored. His shift was almost over, and nothing had happened for weeks. The humans seemed to have accepted their fate. Perhaps they were finally learning their place in the galaxy. "Captain," his sensor operator called out, "I'm picking up some unusual energy readings from the human gas giant." Thrix barely looked up from his personal data pad. "What kind of readings?" "I'm not sure, sir. It looks like they're doing something in the planet's atmosphere. Maybe collecting gas for fuel? Probably, Thrix agreed. Mark it in the log and move on. What the aliens did not realize was that Jupiter was being turned into the largest fusion bomb in human history. Teams of engineers had been seeding its atmosphere with fusion triggers, creating a weapon that could sterilize half the solar system, if necessary. It was a doomsday weapon that humanity prayed they would never have to use. But if the aliens wanted to make this a fight to the death, humanity was prepared for that too. On Earth, in the depths of the Pentagon, General Sarah Morrison briefed the world's military leaders on the reality of their situation. The aliens see us as primitives, she explained. They think our technology is inferior, our tactics are crude, and our thinking is limited. They are right about one thing. We are not like them. She activated a holographic display showing alien ship designs alongside human ones. Their ships are works of art. Ours are weapons of war. Their weapons are precise and elegant. Ours are designed to kill as efficiently as possible. Their tactics are based on thousands of years of civilized warfare. Our tactics are based on millions of years of evolution on a world that tried to kill us every single day. The general paused to let that sink in. The aliens think they know what violence looks like because they have read about our wars in their databases. But they have never faced an enemy that learned warfare by fighting other humans. They have never encountered a species that considers impossible odds to be just another tactical challenge. In his command center on Luna Base, Admiral Reeves received a communication from Earth. The president's face appeared on his screen, looking older than his years. Marcus, are you certain about this course of action? Once we start, there will be no going back. The galaxy will see us as the aggressors. Reeves looked out through the reinforced windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, alien ships waited to enforce humanity's imprisonment. Mr. President, the galaxy already sees us as dangerous animals that need to be caged. We can either prove them right by breaking out of this cage, or we can spend the rest of human history wondering what might have been. The president was quiet, for a long moment. How long until you're ready? Another week, sir. Maybe less if Dr. Vasquez finishes the final batch of kinetic rounds ahead of schedule. And you're confident we can win? Admiral Reeves smiled, and for the first time in months it was genuine. Mr. President, these aliens have been living in peace for so long they've forgotten what war actually looks like. They're about to get a very painful reminder. As the conversation ended, Reeves turned back to his tactical displays. The alien quarantine fleet continued their lazy patrols, confident in their technological superiority. They had no idea that human ships were already in position, waiting for the order to attack. They could not detect the stealth vessels that had been shadowing them for weeks, learning their patrol patterns and identifying their weaknesses. The aliens thought they had contained humanity. In reality, they had given Earth's greatest military minds 6 months to prepare for war. It was the biggest mistake in galactic history. Soon, very soon, the Galactic Council would learn what happened when you cornered a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history fighting for survival. They would discover the difference between civilized warfare and human warfare, and they would regret ever hearing the name Earth. The UES Defiance drifted silently through space, running on minimal power to avoid detection. Captain Maria Rodriguez sat in her command chair, watching the alien patrol ships through her view screen. For 3 hours, she had been studying their movements, timing their patterns, waiting for the perfect moment. "Captain," whispered her tactical officer, "the alien destroyer is beginning its turn. We have a 40-second window before the next ship enters sensor range." Rodriguez nodded. "All hands, prepare for combat. This is not a drill. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you cage humanity." She activated the ship-wide communication system. "Ladies and gentlemen, 6 months ago the aliens told us we were too dangerous for civilized space. Let's prove them right. The Defiance was not humanity's largest ship or its most advanced. It was, however, exactly what Rodriguez needed for this mission. Fast, maneuverable, and packed with enough nuclear warheads to crack a small moon. More importantly, it was expendable. "Bring us to full power," Rodriguez ordered. "Target the alien. flagship and prepare to engage. On the bridge of the Zephyrian command ship Stellar Wind, Admiral Zethkar was reviewing supply reports when his sensor officer suddenly straightened. "Admiral, I'm detecting a human vessel approaching at high speed. They appear to have been hiding behind the asteroid cluster." Zethkar set down his datapad with mild annoyance. "Signal them to stop and return to their patrol area. If they refuse, we will disable their engines and escort them back manually." "Sir, they're not responding to our communications. And Admiral, they're accelerating directly toward us." For the first time, Zethkar felt a flicker of concern. He had been commanding quarantine operations for 6 months, and the humans had never shown any signs of aggression. They had tested the boundaries a few times, but always backed down when confronted by superior alien technology. "Raise shields and charge weapons," he ordered. "We'll give them one more chance to surrender before we disable their primitive ship." The Stellar Wind was a masterpiece of Zephyrian engineering, over 2 kilometers long and armed with particle beams that could slice through solid metal like a knife through paper. Its shields could deflect the blast from a small star. Against a single human ship, it should have been complete overkill. Captain Rodriguez watched the alien weapons powering up and smiled grimly. "They think this is going to be a civilized engagement. Rules of war surrender demands minimal casualties. They have no idea what's coming." "Captain," her weapons officer reported, "all warheads are armed and ready. Kinetic kill vehicles are loaded. We're ready to paint the void with alien wreckage. Target their shield generators first. If we can bring down their defenses, the surprise will be complete." The Defiant screamed toward the alien flagship at maximum acceleration. To Admiral Zethkar, it looked like a suicide run. No rational being would ram their ship into a superior enemy vessel. The humans must be malfunctioning somehow. "Open fire," he commanded. "Disable their engines." Blue particle beams lanced out from the Stellar Wind, designed to precisely target the human ship's propulsion systems. It was a surgical strike, meant to stop the ship without destroying it completely. The kind of measured response that civilized beings used against each other. The beams struck the Defiance's hull and did exactly nothing. Rodriguez had spent 2 months coating her ship with ablative armor made from salvaged alien hull materials. The particle beams that would have crippled a normal human vessel simply bounced off. "Their weapons are having no effect," the Zephyrian sensor officer reported in shock. "How is that possible?" Admiral Zethkar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The human ship was still accelerating, now less than 30 seconds from impact. "Maximum power to all weapons, target their reactor." But it was too late. Captain Rodriguez was already executing the final phase of her plan. "Launch all warheads," she commanded. "Then get us out of here." 40 nuclear missiles erupted from the Defiance's launch bays, each one targeted at a different section of the alien flagship. Behind them came a swarm of kinetic kill vehicles, simple chunks of tungsten accelerated to incredible speeds. Admiral Zethkar watched in horror as his ship's defensive systems tried to track dozens of incoming projectiles. The Stellar Wind's point defense lasers were designed to stop 1 or 2 missiles at most. Against this kind of saturation attack, they were useless. The first nuclear warhead detonated against the flagship's forward shields. The second hit 3 seconds later. By the time the 5th warhead exploded, the shields were failing across multiple sections. "Brace for impact," Zethkar shouted. But there was nowhere to run. The kinetic kill vehicles arrived like the fist of an angry god. Chunks of metal moving at 20% the speed of light punched through the Stellar Wind's hull as if it were made of paper. Explosions bloomed along the massive ship's length as internal systems overloaded and failed. But Captain Rodriguez was not finished. Even as her missiles and kinetic weapons tore the alien flagship apart, the Defiance continued its headlong charge toward the enemy vessel. "Captain, we need to change course now," her navigator shouted. "We're going to collide with their hull." Rodriguez gripped her command chair as the ship shook from alien weapons fire. "Negative. Hold course and prepare for impact. All hands abandon ship. Get to the escape pods now. Captain, you need to evacuate too. Someone needs to make sure we hit our target. Go, that's an order." The bridge crew reluctantly headed for the escape pods, leaving Rodriguez alone at the helm of the doomed ship. Through her view screen, she could see the stellar wind growing larger by the second. Fires burned along its hull where her weapons had found their mark, but the massive vessel was still operational. That was about to change. The Defiant struck the alien flagship amidships at 17,000 kilometers per hour. The impact vaporized both ships instantly, creating a miniature star that lit up the darkness of space. The explosion was visible from Earth, 4 billion kilometers away. Admiral Zethkar died without understanding what had happened. In his last moments, he could not comprehend why the humans had sacrificed their ship and crew just to destroy his vessel. It made no tactical sense. No civilized species would trade one ship for another in such a wasteful manner. But Rodriguez had not been thinking like a civilized being. She had been thinking like a human. Across the quarantine line, alien crews watched in stunned silence as their flagship burned. The explosion had taken out 2 escort vessels as well, leaving a gap in their formation that had never existed before. Captain Thrix of the Wind Cutter stared at his tactical display in shock. How did they do that? Our sensors showed only one, human ship, lightly armed. How did they destroy the stellar wind? Before anyone could answer, new contacts began appearing on sensors throughout the alien fleet. Human ships were decloaking everywhere, emerging from asteroid fields and gas giant shadows where they had been hiding for weeks. The battle for humanity's freedom had begun. Commander Sarah Park watched from the bridge of the UES Retribution as her stealth ships revealed themselves to the enemy. All vessels, this is Retribution Actual. Execute Operation Breakout. Show these aliens what human warfare looks like. The human fleet was nothing like what the aliens expected. Where alien ships were smooth and elegant, human vessels were angular and aggressive, covered in armor plating and bristling with weapons. They moved with the coordinated precision of a wolf pack, each ship supporting the others in a deadly dance of destruction. Target the alien communication arrays first, Park ordered. Cut off their ability to call for reinforcements, then we go for their weapons. The UES Vengeance, commanded by Captain Chen, swooped down on a crystalline architect vessel like a hawk attacking a dove. The alien ship's beautiful crystal hull shattered under the impact of human railguns, its crew dying before they could even understand they were under attack. On the other side of the formation, the UES Fury engaged 3 ethereal gas ships simultaneously. Captain Williams had studied alien tactics for months, and he knew exactly how to exploit their weaknesses. The ethereals relied on energy shields and superior speed, but they had never faced an enemy that used their own weapons against them. Fire gravity mines, Williams commanded. Dozens of small devices erupted from the Fury's launchers, each one containing a miniaturized gravity generator. When they detonated near the alien ships, they created gravitational distortions that crushed the ethereal vessels like tin cans. Throughout the battle, human ships used tactics that the aliens had never encountered before. They rammed damaged vessels into healthy ones. They used nuclear mines hidden in debris fields. They fired missiles that split into dozens of smaller warheads just before impact. Most shocking of all, they showed no regard for the traditional rules of space combat. When an alien captain tried to surrender, the humans ignored the signal and destroyed his ship anyway. When alien vessels attempted to retreat, human ships pursued them relentlessly, giving no quarter. Admiral Reeves watched the battle from Luna Base, his face grim but satisfied. The first lesson of human warfare, he said to his staff. There are no rules except victory. Within 2 hours, the alien quarantine fleet was scattered or destroyed. The survivors fled toward the edge of the system, broadcasting desperate calls for reinforcement. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered once again in the Crystal Dome on Zenthara Prime, but this time the whispers carried fear instead of arrogance. The impossible had happened. The human quarantine had been broken. Hegemon Prime stood before the assembled delegates, his silver form trembling with rage. The creatures from Earth have destroyed our fleet. 300 vessels, wiped out by primitive savages. With crude weapons, Architect Prime's crystalline body flashed with angry red light. How is this possible? Our technology is superior in every way. Our ships are faster, stronger, better armed. How could these barbaric humans defeat our finest warriors? Admiral Korth, one of the few survivors from the quarantine fleet, stepped forward. His Zephyrian features were marked by exhaustion and something that looked like fear. Honored Council, I was there when the humans attacked. What they did, it defies all understanding of civilized warfare. The council chambers fell silent as Korth continued his report. They used their own ships as weapons, ramming them into our vessels without regard for their crews' lives. They fired nuclear warheads at point-blank range, accepting massive damage to their own ships just to hurt us more. And their tactic, he paused, struggling for words. They fought like wild animals. No honor, no rules, no mercy. Vortex Prime's gaseous form swirled with agitation inside his containment suit. Surely our remaining forces can contain this outbreak. How many ships could these primitives possibly have? The answer came from the intelligence officer who stepped up to the central platform. Her ethereal form flickered with distress as she activated a holographic display showing the current state of human space. The humans are expanding rapidly, she reported. In the 3 weeks since they broke the quarantine, they have established colonies in 17 star systems. They are moving faster than we believed possible. The display showed red dots spreading across the galaxy's outer rim like an infection. Each dot represented a human fleet or colony ship, pushing deeper into what had once been secure alien territory. But how? Demanded Architect Prime. They have only primitive ships. Their technology is centuries behind ours. That was true before the quarantine, the intelligence officer admitted. But our analysis of the wreckage suggests they have been reverse engineering our technology. Their ships now mount weapons and defense systems that appear to be based on our own designs. Hegemon Prime's voice rose to a shriek. You are telling me that these animals learned to copy our technology in just 6 months? Worse than that, sir. They have improved on it. The kinetic weapons they used against our fleet have no equivalent in any civilized arsenal. They weaponized simple physics in ways we never considered. War Commander Thexlar, veteran of a dozen galactic conflicts, stepped forward. His massive form dwarfed the other delegates as he spoke. Enough talk. We know where these humans come from. We know where their homeworld lies. I request permission to assemble a battle fleet and end this threat permanently. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. This was familiar ground for the council. When faced with a problem, they applied superior force until the problem went away. It had worked for thousands of years. Granted, declared Hegemon Prime. Assemble the greatest fleet in galactic history. Bring ships from every member species. Show these humans what happens when they defy the natural order. 3 weeks later, War Commander Thexlar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable Victory, watching as the greatest armada ever assembled moved toward human space. 500 ships from 12 different species, each one a masterpiece of alien engineering. Weapons that could crack planets, shields that could deflect the energy of stars, sensors that could track a single ship across light years. Status report, Thexlar commanded. His aide consulted a holographic display. All ships report ready for combat. We should reach the outer edge of human space within 6 hours. Intelligence suggests their main fleet is concentrated around their gas giant. Thexlar nodded with satisfaction. Then we will crush them there and end this rebellion once and for all. Signal the fleet. Prepare for battle. What Thexlar did not know was that human scout ships had been tracking his fleet since it left alien space. Admiral Reeves had been preparing for this moment since the quarantine first began, and he had no intention of letting the aliens choose the time and place of battle. They're coming in force, reported Commander Park from her position aboard the UES Retribution. 500 ships, just like intelligence predicted. They're heading straight for Jupiter. Admiral Reeves studied the tactical display from his command center on Luna Base. The alien fleet was indeed massive, but it was also exactly what he had expected. The aliens thought like civilized beings. They gathered their forces, chose their target, and attacked directly. It was efficient, honorable, and completely predictable. Execute Operation Anvil, Reeves commanded. Let's show them what human, strategic thinking looks like. The Battle of Proxima Centauri began before the aliens even realized they were under attack. As War Commander Thexelar's fleet approached what they believed was the main human stronghold, gravity mines erupted throughout their formation. The weapons had been planted weeks earlier by stealth ships, disguised as ordinary space debris. Gravity distortions throughout the fleet, reported Thexelar's tactical officer. Ships are being crushed by artificial gravity wells. Before the War Commander could respond, the second phase of the human attack began. The star itself seemed to explode as hidden gravity bombs destabilized the stellar core, sending massive solar flares racing toward the alien fleet at the speed of light. Thexelar watched in horror as the front third of his fleet was engulfed in stellar fire. Ships that had survived for centuries were vaporized in seconds by temperatures that rivaled the core of a sun. "Impossible," he roared. "How did they weaponize a star?" His science officer was frantically consulting his instruments. The humans somehow destabilized the stellar core using gravity manipulation. The effect is temporary, but the energy release is enormous. Evasive maneuvers. Get us away from this system. But there was nowhere to run. Human fleets emerged from hyperspace all around the alien formation, having used the aliens' own faster-than-light technology against them. The humans had studied alien fleet movements for months, learning to predict exactly where their enemies would be. Captain Martinez commanded the UES Devastator as it swept down on the alien rearguard. His ship was a converted mining vessel, ugly and crude compared to the elegant alien warships. But it was also packed with nuclear warheads and kinetic kill vehicles. "Target the pretty ships first," Martinez ordered his crew. "The aliens put too much effort into making their vessels look good. I bet they sacrifice armor for aesthetics." He was right. The beautiful crystalline architect ships shattered like glass under human weapons fire. Their crystal hulls, designed to catch and reflect light in pleasing patterns, offered little protection against tungsten rods moving at relativistic speeds. Meanwhile, Captain Singh led a squadron of human fighters in a coordinated attack on an ethereal command ship. The gas-based aliens had never encountered enemies that could coordinate their movements with such precision. "They move like they share a single mind," the ethereal captain gasped as human fighters swarmed around his vessel. "How do they communicate so quickly?" The answer was simple. Humans had been pack hunters for millions of years. They instinctively understood group tactics in ways that the individualistic aliens could not match. Throughout the battle, human commanders used strategies that the aliens had never seen before. They sacrificed damaged ships to take out larger enemy vessels. They used the wreckage of destroyed ships as cover for follow-up attacks. They coordinated their movements across light years of space, timing their assaults to hit the enemy from multiple directions simultaneously. Most devastating of all, they treated space itself as a weapon. Human ships had seeded the entire star system with hidden mines, gravity bombs, and kinetic kill satellites. What looked like empty space to alien sensors was actually a carefully prepared killing field. War Commander Thexelar found himself trapped in the center of a collapsing formation as his ships were systematically destroyed around him. His flagship's shields were failing under the constant barrage of human weapons, and his crew was beginning to panic. "Sir, we have lost 60% of the fleet," his aide reported. "The humans are using tactics we have never encountered. They fight like..." "Like what?" Thexelar demanded. "Like they consider war to be a science instead of an art." The War Commander finally understood. The aliens had treated warfare as a noble pursuit, bound by rules and traditions that went back thousands of years. They fought with honor, gave quarter to surrendering enemies, and avoided unnecessary destruction. The humans treated war as a problem to be solved. They used whatever weapons worked, ignored traditional rules of engagement, and focused entirely on destroying their enemies as efficiently as possible. They did not care about honor or tradition. They cared about winning. As the inevitable victory exploded around him, Thexelar's last thought was a warning he would never be able to deliver. The humans were not just another species seeking to join galactic civilization. The crystalline towers of Zenthera Prime no longer gleamed with their former glory. Scorch marks scarred their surfaces, and several had collapsed entirely during the human bombardment 3 days earlier. The once proud capital of the Galactic Council now cowered beneath the shadow of human dreadnoughts, hanging in orbit like mechanical vultures. In the emergency bunker deep beneath the planetary surface, the surviving members of the Galactic Council huddled around a flickering holographic display. The map of known space told a story that none of them wanted to believe. Red markers indicating human-controlled territory covered nearly a third of the galaxy. Hegemon Prime's silver form had lost much of its luster. His voice, once commanding and proud, now carried the weight of defeat. How did this happen? In less than 6 months, these primitives have conquered more territory than some empires claim in centuries. The few surviving military advisors exchanged glances before Admiral Korth stepped forward. He was one of the handful of officers who had faced human forces and lived to tell about it. The humans do not fight like any enemy we have encountered before, Hegemon. They do not seek to conquer worlds so much as to liberate them. Liberate? Architect Prime's crystalline body flickered with confusion. What do you mean? They offer protection to species that have grown tired of council oversight. The Denari were the first to join them voluntarily, followed by the Kalani Trade Federation. Now entire sectors are declaring independence and requesting human protection. Vortex Prime's gaseous form swirled with agitation. But why would any civilized species choose these violent barbarians over the stability we have provided for millennia? The answer came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Chen entered the bunker, flanked by human marines in powered armor. She looked exactly the same as she had 6 months earlier when she had stood before the council requesting membership. But everything else had changed. Because, Chen said calmly, we offer them something you never could: freedom. The council members recoiled as the human ambassador approached their table. The guards they had stationed around the bunker were gone, replaced by human soldiers who stood at attention but ready for action. How did you get past our defenses? Hegemon Prime demanded. What defenses? Chen replied. Your remaining fleet surrendered when they realized they were outnumbered 50-1. Your planetary shields failed the moment our engineers applied the access codes we found in your own computers, and your elite guard units laid down their weapons when they saw what happened to the last group that tried to resist human forces. She activated her own holographic display, showing the current military situation in stark detail. Human fleets controlled every major hyperspace route. Human colonies had been established on strategic worlds throughout former council space, and most damaging of all, human diplomatic missions had convinced dozens of species to abandon their council membership. This is impossible, Architect Prime protested. Our civilization has stood for 10,000 years. We cannot be defeated by creatures who discovered faster-than-light travel less than a century ago. Admiral Reeves materialized as a hologram beside Ambassador Chen. His image flickered slightly due to the interference from the planet's damaged communication systems, but his voice was clear and strong. Your civilization stood for 10,000 years because no one ever challenged it, he said. You ruled through technological superiority and the threat of force. But you forgot the most important lesson of warfare. The strongest army is not always the one with the best weapons. Sometimes it is the one with the strongest will to fight. The display changed to show images from across the galaxy, human ships moving freely through space that had been council territory just months before, alien species working alongside human engineers to build new colonies, former council worlds flying the banner of the Terran Alliance. The Denari joined us because we offered them fair trade agreements instead of the exploitative contracts the council imposed, Chen continued. The Kalani requested our protection because we promised to defend their independence instead of demanding tribute. The Vorth delegation asked for membership in the Terran Alliance because we treat them as equals instead of subjects. Hegemon Prime's voice was barely a whisper. What do you want from us? Chen pulled out a data pad and placed it on the table. The unconditional surrender of the Galactic Council, the dissolution of all council authority over member species, and the establishment of the Terran Alliance as the new governing body for this region of space. You cannot be serious, Vortex, Prime objected. You expect us to hand over control of the galaxy to a species that has barely left its home system? We are not asking for control, Admiral Reeves corrected. "We are demanding it. The difference is that you no longer have a choice in the matter." As if to emphasize his point, the bunker shook as another human ship landed on the surface above. Through the reinforced walls, they could hear the sound of heavy machinery as human forces established their occupation headquarters. "Your military has been defeated," Chen explained patiently. "Your fleets are scattered or destroyed. Your member species are abandoning the Council in droves. You can either sign these surrender documents and retain some measure of dignity, or you can continue to resist and face the consequences." Architect Prime's crystalline form pulsed with desperate anger. "And what consequences would those be? Will you destroy our worlds? Enslave our populations? Show your true savage nature?" Ambassador Chen's expression remained calm, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "No, we will do something far worse than that. We will leave you alone." The council members looked confused, so Chen continued. "The human fleet will withdraw from all former council territory. Human colonies will be established only on uninhabited worlds. Human diplomatic missions will cease all contact with former council species." "I do not understand," Hegemon Prime said slowly. "You threaten us with isolation?" "I threaten you with irrelevance," Chen replied. "Without the tribute from your member worlds, your economies will collapse. Without the resources of your colonies, your technology will stagnate. Without the fear of your military, your authority will crumble. In 50 years, the Galactic Council will be nothing more than a historical curiosity." The truth of her words was evident in the economic projections displayed on the holographic screen. The Council had always relied on the wealth and resources of their subject species. Without that foundation, their entire civilization would slowly decline into obscurity. "But if you sign the surrender documents," Chen continued, "the Terran Alliance will offer trade agreements to all former Council species. We will share our technology, protect your worlds from external threats, and treat you as partners rather than subjects." Admiral Reeves leaned forward in his holographic display. "The choice is simple. Join us willingly and prosper. Resist us and fade away. But understand this. The age of Council dominance is over. The only question is whether you want to be part of what comes next." For long minutes the Council chamber was silent, except for the sound of human vehicles moving outside. Finally, Hegemon Prime reached for the datapad with a trembling hand. "Where do we sign?" he asked quietly. One by one, the surviving council members added their signatures to the surrender document. Each signature represented thousands of years of galactic history coming to an end. The Galactic Council, the oldest and most powerful government in known space, was dissolving itself. As the last signature was added, Ambassador Chen stood and formally accepted the surrender. "The Galactic Council is hereby dissolved. All former Council territory is now under the protection of the Terran Alliance. Any species wishing to join the Alliance will be welcomed as equal partners." She paused and looked around at the defeated alien leaders. "You thought humanity was too violent for civilized space. You were right. We are violent, we are chaotic, we are unpredictable. But you made one crucial mistake in your assessment." "What mistake?" Architect Prime asked. "You assumed that our violence made us unfit for civilization. In reality, our violence made us the only species capable of protecting civilization from those who would abuse it." As Chen and her escort left the bunker, Admiral Reeves remained as a hologram to address the former council leaders one last time. "You ruled through fear for 10,000 years, he said. "You kept peace by threatening war. You maintained order by suppressing freedom. But you forgot that every empire built on fear eventually falls to someone who refuses to be afraid." The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving the former council members alone in their underground bunker. Above them, the sound of human construction crews could be heard as they began rebuilding the planetary defense systems under new management. On the bridge of the UES Retribution, Admiral Reeves watched as the last council forces departed Zenthera Prime. The war was over. Humanity had won not just a military victory, but something far more valuable: the respect of an entire galaxy. "Signal all fleets," he ordered. Begin Phase 4. It's time to build something better than what came before. Across former council, space, human ships carried a message to every inhabited world. The age of oppression was over. The Terran Alliance offered protection, prosperity, and freedom to any species willing to accept humanity as their guardians.